Come on, YouTube events. Hello to Periscope, Facebook, and Periscope. There you are, YouTube events. The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Ben Ark from BTC IoT.
Hello there.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Happy almost halvening, peeps.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to the issue of the day, 2020 Bitcoin halving. As we've seen on CoinDesk, Bitcoin halving searches on Google have hit an all-time high, with Bitcoinists even saying halving searches goes parabolic just as the Bitcoin price explodes. So let's find out what the Bitcoin halving is. We're going to go and get the chat ready here. So if you want to join us in the YouTube chat, you can give us a question. What is your question about the halving? We hope that we'll cover all your questions. If not, we're going to go back through and double check, make sure we get all of the questions answered. So at a very basic level, the Bitcoin halving is the reduction of the Bitcoin block supply. So if we look right here, the block reward starts out above 10. So if we start out on the right side here, the block reward is above 10. So there's just 3 block rewards above 10. That was the 50 block reward, the 25 block reward, and the 12.5 block reward. Right now, we're going from the 12.5 block reward to the 6.25 block reward. So this is the first time having the supply of Bitcoin every 10 minutes that are produced on average will go under 10. So we can see that it's a very regular schedule of going down by 50% every certain number of blocks. As you can see, every 210,000 blocks, it goes down. If we look at it on another chart here we can see the supply of Bitcoin as well as the reward structure of the halvening. So if you look at the maroon or red line on the left-hand side, we can see the supply. So again, working backwards, the first reward was at 50. So this is up at 50. The second reward was at 25. So we see by about the time that 25 Bitcoins is the reward, 10 million of the 21 million, about half of the Bitcoin have already been printed. When the reward drops to 12.5, which is where we are right now, if we look up to the chart, we could see anywhere between 15 million and 18 million Bitcoin have been printed. While when we drop down here to our new reward at 6.25, we see that it's about 18 million to looks about 20 million Bitcoin will be printed during this time period. So this is pretty much it for the printing of Bitcoin. All the rest of after the 6.25 halving, after we go down again, it'll only really be this last million. This last million will be the only Bitcoin printed for the rest of time, pretty much. It goes all the way up to around 2130 is the current estimate for when it'll run out. So those are the basic charts. I'm looking at this here. Here's the same kind of chart. We can see the halving supply and we can see the Bitcoin supply. So according to this chart, we are right at about 18.4 million Bitcoins printed, and that the halving block structure is about to go down. This chart also shows us the chart of monetary inflation percentage, and that for the first time, Bitcoin's inflation percentage is going to start dropping significantly, close to 1 and then below 1. So we're going to see Bitcoin actually go into a negative inflation period here. So there's a lot of scarcity coming into the market, as they're saying in the chat. First, let's go to the panelists. Dan, Ben, anything you guys want to add to these charts? Ben, go ahead first.
Just that, this is the genius of Satoshi, and it's all intended by design. He could have had a much, straighter line of deflation if he designed it differently, if he designed the algorithm differently, but he didn't, specifically because you want that bootstrap of distribution very early on. You want all those coins to get out there and just to get into people's hands and to get a lot of excitement. You don't want, if we'd only had 2 million Bitcoins minted and we were still waiting on another 19 million Bitcoins, then in people's minds, there's just a hell of a lot of Bitcoin which haven't been minted. So it makes the thing which they're holding worth less. Whereas we almost have that, this is 1 in a 21 million feeling, even though we're, a couple of million shy, just because we know that the majority of those Bitcoins have already been minted. So it's really a testament to Satoshi's genius. It really is. And that, in this particular halvening, we're talking 18.5 million Bitcoins, which have been minted already. And as I've said before on the show, currently we're in very unstable times, and to have something which is regulated with such stability, particularly when all these countries are hyperinflating currency, and just turning on the printing machine just as much as they can, because they need to be able to stimulate the economy and pump money into the economy. But that's a price which, it will work for the short term, but then everyone's money will become worth less or worthless over time. The currency will just lose its grasp on reality, which is sadly what's going to happen. So in very unstable times, we've got something which is very, very stable, and that's the halvening, and it's happening at predicted rates. And we know when the one after the one which we're going to have is happening. So I just think the timing is incredible. Like this could have happened, October or September last year, and apart from as Bitcoiners, no one would have paid that much attention to it. But I think to have something with such regularity happen in very irregular times is good, and it just highlights what Bitcoin is, and it's somewhere safe you can put your money, and it's going to be cryptographically safe from inflation. But that doesn't mean. Well, I think we'll probably talk on inflation and things a little bit later on, so I won't rant on too much.
All right,
but
Dan,
no, I think it's a testament to Satoshi.
Dan, Eve, your thoughts on the chart so far and the Bitcoin halving?
Well, I think in general, I definitely agree that it's a beautiful hash-based work of art in general, Bitcoin, and the schedule, the halving, the halving schedule. I mean, there's still some people are still skeptical as to whether the fees structure will definitely be enough to sort of keep miners are mining after all the rewards have stopped. But I think that we're clearly on a trajectory to show that even micro fees in X years time are going to be worth a huge amount. So I don't think there's going to be a problem there. And as Ben said as well, second, the fact that there's so much money printing that's going on at the moment. From the US, there's potential Greek and Italian bailouts, and potentially, I don't know, anything else. As someone I saw, I think, India actually said, chance on brink of third bailout for banks. It does seem like we could be heading that way. If the COVID thing takes up too much more of our time and economic power, but the hash rate is staying strong at it's roughly 110 exahashes now, 112. Again, an all-time high was at 123. So that the power of the network is still immense and almost at full maximum capacity. So yeah, bring it on.
All right, we'd just like to thank everyone for joining us and ask you to give us a thumbs up and a share. If it's your first time here, please subscribe down below, hit that bell for notifications. We do these shows a lot of the time. Also, if you have a question about the Bitcoin halving, now's a great time to get it in. We might not answer it right away, but we'll be sure to go back over questions to make sure we answer everything here. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's a lot of good basic questions that we would like to go over. And if we forget to go over it, please remind us so we can go over it. Really quick.
I try and make sure all the stupid questions are asked as well. So I try and cover that so that everyone's less embarrassed. So don't worry, you've got me to fall back on.
We'll put Dan in charge of that one. But we had some polls today on the @MadBitcoins Twitter account. Thanks to everybody for voting. You can still vote. These polls will go on for about another day. But just here's our results so far. The Bitcoin halving will drive the price up or down. 72% of people, 87 people voted. 72% think the price will go up because of the Bitcoin halving. This is probably because of the supply and demand. We'll talk about this in a little bit. The Bitcoin halving is good or bad. 82% of people think the halving is good. 17.5% think it's bad. Out of 57 people who voted in this poll. So that's an interesting one.
What do you think the reasons people voted for bad? There wasn't much commentary, but what do you think the reason is? Just maybe scared about that there's a technical glitch or something like that?
Well, I mean, it could be historical because it did go down a little bit on the last halvening, because there was that theory that it was priced in. So people were like, "Oh, it's already been priced in. It's not going to go up."
Compared to the traditional markets where they're printing lots of money, for the Bitcoin to be printing less money seems like a radically different approach. So I imagine that people are looking at the traditionals and saying, if everyone else is printing, maybe we shouldn't. And also the idea that we can't kick it down the road. So many of these other things, even, the UK election, they were like, okay, well, we're not going to have an election for a year, coronavirus, all this shit. So with this Bitcoin halving thing, it's programmatically in there. It happens on the block. The only way to get it to stop would be to stop mining Bitcoin, which if everyone in the world stopped, we could delay the halving. But otherwise, it's going to happen. So I think there's also probably some uncertainty because it's not driven by a human. It's not driven by a regulator or a scheduler. It is like an act of nature. It is a thing that is going to happen. Like the blocks are going to hit the number. The rewards are going to go down by half. We're going to celebrate here on the World Crypto Network. We're going to have a good time. But I saw a great Forbes article where they said, what's actually going to happen? And like nothing, nothing's going to happen. You're not visibly going to be able to see anything. Your Bitcoin aren't going to look different. The interface colors aren't going to change. It's not like Fortnite or whatever. There's not going to be a Travis Scott concert or whatever that is in the middle of the show.
Double 140 to 280 characters.
Yeah,
like Twitter, like feature upgrade.
No feature upgrade, no achievement unlocked. I mean, it's going to go on as normal, and that's part of the greatness. And it's also, I could see how it could be scary. So I was interested to see these the 17.5.
I really think that's a historical prediction because it did do that the last couple of times. It went down.
Well, they might be saying that the price goes down. I don't know. I think it's just
people selling the news.
I want to say that it's some resistance to the kind of libertarian, getting rid of inflation is good type thing. That maybe there are some Bitcoiners who are like, hey, I wouldn't mind having some inflation. Ethereum.
Well, I mean, to that point in a Bitcoin world, you could still have. So fair weather surplus recycling is a pretty good idea. If you have really good economic period, to be able to take some surplus and then lock it up somewhere and then use that surplus if you have economic downturn through a coronavirus or whatever else. That's cool. That's a good idea. The only problem is that we don't do it properly. So we burn through all our capital and just grow, as much as we can. And then when we crash, we then just print money. So we're not making use of the surplus. We're just milking the cow even harder and faster. So we're not doing what we should do to try and buffer out that economic downturn, which you could do cryptographically, with some simple multi-sig wallets or whatever. You could, while the going's good and countries have a surplus of capital, they could lock it up by the decision of all the users. I don't know, all the people within that community. And then that capital could be used then if there was some economic problem and a downturn. Like that is possible, but you just can't print more, which is the problem with the fiat currency. You can't inflate it, but you can have economic buffers.
I'd love to see an experiment, say with two kids that wouldn't usually of the age where there's a limited understanding of economics, and to kind of try and teach them that you've got two kids, one of them is going to have money and they can just keep on adding more money, and see if they understand as a kid how much that devalues what they have. The fact that someone could just make another one that has suddenly more I don't know. It's such a. It's when you think about it from the outside, it's such a crazy idea to just print money out of thin air in order to prop up an economy. That even a kid would realize that's a bad thing to do.
I think children, and this is why, because Andreas always used to use children a lot in his talks. He'd say, little Joey coin, and and you look at kids in a playground and they have their own little market, they're trading things, and this elastic band's worth, so many, I don't know, staples or marbles or whatever else. Pogs, yeah, or whatever the kids' collectible is of that time, which hasn't been banned and is still able to be in schools. But the humans, children display an innate understanding of value and the value in objects and their exchange rate between other objects, which we kind of lose as time wears on. And I think one of the reasons in which we lose that is we don't have a grasp on something, a stable value system, because we're all so used to just this thing which just they print more of. But all economic theorists, maybe not the Keynesians, but a lot of the modern economic theorists, they say that a near zero or deflationary currency or money is better than an inflationary currency. Nash, he was a big proponent of near zero, as close to zero as you can get when it comes to currency. But yeah, so it is. It is a superior form of value store. And you could, in fact, like a government could, like, we could all opt, say in Wales, to have a Welsh pound, like Lightning Network RGB liquid token thing, and we could, if everyone in the country wanted, for there to be a level of inflation, we could have that, but it would still be pegged to Bitcoin. Like we would still have this value base which we could understand, like this universal medium of account. So you can still have inflation. You could tokenize it and have some sort of inflation, but it would be in a much more controlled and less reckless, turn on the burr machine.
All right, well, let's get back to some basics here. Let's talk about what inflation is, what the general idea is here. So the general idea, like you're saying, Ben, is that the United States has borrowed debt. We've borrowed debt from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's printed us up money, and that's allowed us to print more and more money because they're now holding the debt. So our money is now based on debt. It's not based on the gold standard. So there's a lot of complicated things happening there. But basically, inflation is when they print money, not because they got something new. Maybe in the old system, let's say if we discovered a new gold mine, that gold would add new value to the economy. There would be new gold coins in circulation. The value of all gold coins would go down. But they've changed that now, right? Instead of finding the gold in the gold mine, the actual value, now, at least in the American system, Congress prints money. Congress says fiat, which is a word that means let it be done in Latin. And Congress says we need more bombers, and bombers cost this. Fiat, let it be done. They print the money. They actually call up the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve creates more debt, right? The debt is bonds. China bought a bunch of the bonds. Other countries buy the bonds. People buy the bonds. They buy the debt. With the idea being that the United States has made a promise to pay back like the debt plus interest, right? So that's why we're inflating things. We're always trying to pay back the debt plus interest, but there's not enough money in the whole system to pay back the debt plus interest, but we're going to keep running the system. The other thing about our system is that, as you can see, it relies on growth. We have to keep growing to keep paying back the debt with more and more money that's worth less and less value. And so it just keeps happening. And this is part of like the whole replacement economy, the way that everything breaks down and goes bad and it's made out of plastic. That's so you have to buy new things so that the economy goes up. That's why they keep turning over. New economies keep bringing in new consumers so that they can buy more things, so that more things can be sold, so the economy can go up.
Yeah, that fierce level of growth is detrimental to human beings, because it also means that every last second of your work life is squeezed out of you, because we need growth. We need everything to keep growing faster and faster and faster. Whereas, it's not a stable growth pattern for an economy.
I'm hoping though that will kind of, as much as automation, like is it, a lot of people fear it. I'm hoping that automation will actually free us up more to do creative things and to so rather than doing the menial tasks that people don't generally want to do, we can have like little freaking mini bots that just mish around and do whatever, and those people can do stuff that's creative. I mean, who knows, by then we might have the whole current system collapses, which is probably relatively inevitable. And we moved to UBI because of all sorts of craziness that happens. I don't know, everything 2020. So someone put it, this was incredible. Someone put it like this the other day. 2020 is so crazy that the Pentagon announced, yes, here's 3 videos of UFOs, and no one batted an eyelid. They're just like, oh yeah, no worries. Just UFOs, Trump as president, a giant world lockdown, day the world stood still virus. And of course, UFOs. So epic, crazy times.
We've been there before, man. Like you think of a society where no one works and you just have robots and stuff doing things for you, and you think, it's never going to happen. People have to work. The ancient Greeks didn't work. Like, didn't have to. They had slaves, and slaves did everything. 2/3 of the population of ancient Greece were slaves, and they did all the work. And the Greeks just sat around, they had orgies, ate grapes, drank wine, came up with philosophy.
That's why the Greeks had time to take part in politics and to show up in Athens and so on and so forth, because they weren't working.
That's why all that good shit came from that period, was because people's time was just freed up. So there's nothing wrong.
Like Dan was saying with the automation, we were promised these gains in the 50s. We were promised shorter work days. We were promised automation was going to save us. Women wouldn't have to vacuum anymore. All these kind of things. You wouldn't need servants for your house. It didn't happen, right? The relentless
squeeze of that growth we were talking about.
The growth curve, like the making more money. On the other side, though, it produced the most consumer goods in the world. The Cold War, put everything else aside, was largely won because the United States was producing blue jeans and televisions. And in Russia, they looked at that and they said, my God, everyone has a television in their home, maybe 2. They have blue jeans. They are wealthy. We want that. And that also the propaganda images helped out a lot too. But, that production, that ability of capitalism, that ability of inflation-based, all these things. And we're into a lot of big economic territory here. A lot of our audience are libertarian or Austrian economics. They don't like this money printing. They don't approve of it. But yes, it is happening in the world anyway, right? We have to,
there's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. So we are living in this thing. Also, the way the pandemic works is this act of God, this act of nature, right? This thing that hit us. Like, the options are completely give up on society, which is like, let's say we're driving along in the car and the oil filter stopped working. And I said, stop everything. Let's build a brand new car with only what we have on hand in the garage. Forget about the old car. And then some other people said, hey, we could just fix the oil filter. We could just fix this. Maybe we have to print a bunch of money to buy the new oil filter. And that's where we are, where obviously our society basically is Keynesian right now, if you want to know about it. Sorry, Austrian guys. But yeah, they're going to crank the thing and we're going to see what's happening.
I mean, as you were saying, the leisure, as you brought up the leisure society, John Maynard Keynes thought, I mean, he envisioned that by the sort of 70s or 80s, people would be working like a 2-3 day week. Because they wouldn't need to work anymore, because they would have everything they needed, so they don't need to work a couple of days a week. But you didn't account.
That's when Bernays invented not just what you needed, but what you wanted, and advertising. And we started to drive demand, to inflate demand artificially, to create more demand for things that you might not even need.
But I mean, people in developed countries such as the UK and the US, we are economically worse off. I mean, we can buy more stuff because it's cheaper, blah blah blah. But by the metrics of the ability for someone to buy a home and all that sort of stuff, we are a lot worse. I think there's this crazy statistic: the average blue collar worker in the US I think it was the 50s, he was on what would be the equivalent now to like $150,000 a year. It was a huge amount of money, and that's why there was such amazing opportunities for that generation, because they had a lot of access to capital. Even low employed, they could send their kids to college, and they could buy nice houses and all that sort of stuff. And that's why there's all that where the American dream was born. But I mean, in order to keep capital growing, you need to drive down wages. That's one of the ways you can keep it growing, and investment growing as well. So that's why it happened. I mean, and the reason in why it's so fierce is because it's just because of the fiat mechanism behind it and the printing money. It's bad.
And they've been incredibly successful in driving down wages, and they've also driven down benefits, and so that no one has any sick time and that no one has any health care. And I hate to say this because the audience doesn't like it, but we may see, even by the force of protests in the street, a redesign of our society based more around services for individual people rather than around the freedom to make as much money as you want. People are looking at that and they're saying, okay, the freedom to make as much money as you want has been great for like this top 10% of people, maybe, right? But for everyone else who's working at the grocery stores right now, who's working at the fast foods, who's like out there, has to work, has no choice, spreading the virus, doesn't have sick days, doesn't have healthcare, it's not working for them. And the problem of this new virus interconnected society, which has always been our society, but has now just been exposed by the virus, is that it's that classic Bible quote. I mean, whatever you give to the least among us, you should give to me. I mean, Jesus said, right? That's what we're going to come down to in society. And that's very antithetical to the libertarian idea. It's antithetical to the Austrian idea. These are
I don't know if it is. I mean, it just depends on the angle in which you look at it. Like Yang with his human freeing up human capital, so the ability for humans to achieve the most they can in their lives and then drive competition and nurture capitalism.
Oh man, I don't even have to
the
look
function
at the chat to see what they're saying, but yeah, they're going to say the competition goes down. No one wants to be a big scientist if you can't make lots of money or whatever. And then they're also going to say that if you take something from someone else and give it to someone else, you've become a criminal. You are using force. So UBI, as great as it would be for the fast food workers or whatever, is going to take some money from somebody else somewhere. And if you take anything, it's force. I'll look at the chat now, but yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point. I suppose if they can just so freely print money, and I mean, you've got to be pretty brazen and confident to say in your position at the Fed that you've got an infinite amount of money. In theory, you would kind of not directly be putting a gun to someone's head, as it were, by just printing the amount that's required each month in order to airdrop the UBI. So that's kind of one way of looking at it, maybe. So it's kind of like it's kind of a side route. It's like, it's like an ICO scooping its way around legal regulation.
Yeah, it's the whole thing with the ring of power. You give them the ring of power, they're going to print more money. But it's another thing where looking at the basic services need to be provided, especially if we're going to have more of these outbreaks. Even some of the America First talk that might not have been so acceptable early on is now looking like common wisdom. We should have our own drug system here. If you need aspirin or whatever to live, we should make a little aspirin here in the US just in case we get cut off from everyone else. I mean, it's not like, again, it's bad for the aspirin company. Like they're being, competing with this national stockpile or whatever we're going to have happen. So there's a lot of complexities there. But again, I think we're trying to optimize to get the most good out of what we have. Other people would argue by attempting to optimize, you're actually going to get less good. But that's the large scale debate that we're having. And sadly, in the real world, it's like, I don't know, 99% Keynesian. So I mean, just your side's not being representative. It's not going to be considered. And solutions, we're going to see either, 120% Keynesian or 80% Keynesian. I mean, we're going to see, extremes.
No, I mean, it's neoliberal. Like it's there to serve the neoliberal elite, like Trump, for example. People are brought up without means, should then have to work their way up, and then they'll be stronger for it, and they'll be, leaders of industry and all sort of stuff. But both in the US and in Europe, the majority of people who are in control of capital, the majority of the people who are industry leaders, have wealth behind them, and they have access to decent schools, they have access to good food, education, all that stuff. So you're just enabling more people to have access to that stuff, and just by doing that, it's a misnomer to think that it makes them lazy. You know, if you give kids access to good education, food, and somewhere safe to sleep, that'll then make them lazy. It won't give them self-respect, and then they're more likely to go out there and compete, and then you'll end up with better markets if that's your thing. So I mean, I don't know about UBI though. I'm not 100% on UBI. I don't know what the answer is, but to that sort of leisure society, maybe just giving people money does make sense. Yeah, no, I don't know, because I think UBI is almost used as kind of like a band-aid to kind of keep the whole thing moving. Whereas I don't know. Maybe it's a good idea. I haven't really thought through it enough. The whole UBI, universal faucets, just make Ellen your old faucets and put them everywhere, and people just go with their phones. And
That'd be cool.
Buy shit.
But where are they going to get the Bitcoin from? They have to buy it from the market. Forever pump.
Yeah.
Well, that is the problem. Where do you get the money from? But yes, I do think that some form of these universal basic services are going to be demanded and offered. And if you want to think about it in the greedy way, if that's the only way you can understand this, we're actually all going to make more money. Like Ben was saying, with universal childcare, universal healthcare, universal college, all these kind of things, we're going to have better workers. They're going to be smarter workers. They're going to be more healthy. They're going to work more. They're going to make more money, which is going to pump the whole thing up. So it's actually good for everybody. I know it's difficult. We have to go through things you don't like to get there. But I really, and again, it's also, it doesn't matter what I think or what you think, like the grand level of the populace. The real article to read about this, about a month ago, Bloomberg had an article, and they said after that there were pandemics in the same time, around 1880, 1890, around that time period. And then about 30 years later, 1920, there were worldwide revolutions because the pandemics allowed the people to see the inequality in their society. And these revolutions were all about workers' rights. They were about having Saturdays off, having weekends off, having paid time off, having union rights, having factories where you don't lose your arm, right? That's what these revolutions were about. And
like trade
years of health
trade unionists were hung. Yeah,
exactly.
Trade unionists, they were killed. They were literally hung, and they had to fight incredibly hard to get workers' rights.
The Pinkertons, they had private police forces. The rich would just pay a private police force to chisel in on you, to come in on you. So yes, it was. And they fought for these things. They won. And all the things that we appreciated, that we enjoyed in our life, having weekends, having days off, having health care from your employer, even that benefit there, that all came from unions, which, if you really want to source it back, comes from these pandemics where people see the inequality in their society, and it sticks with them. You lose your grandparent, you lose your parent, you lose your family member to this, you remember. It's not just something that you can let go. Like, these people aren't going to let go.
But again, back in the 50s, 60s, they had strong unions. People were heavily unionized, and I mean, you look at teaching in the UK compared to the US. In the US, teachers don't get paid a penny, paid terribly, whereas in the UK, it's a profession. Like, you get paid a decent wage.
Bursaries as well. Isn't there like government grants for training as well, just kind of support?
Yeah, for training and things. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you could.
That's a ridiculous idea to me. Our teachers are paid terribly. The students know it. The kids, everyone knows it. Like, it's awful. Yeah.
Like,
you'd want to pay the people the people that are performing.
They're
molding the clay.
You'd think so, but if you don't trust,
exactly.
Experts,
You're
any more experts. So yes, this experts will only brainwash your children with their expertise.
I like the idea that teaching is going to become like, teachers will be superstars because it'll be so decentralized. There'll be like rating systems, and you won't have like people that don't want to be in the room giving crap lectures and being fuming with people and stuff. You'll have like skilled people who are like world renowned for teaching about X, Y, or Z, and they'll like pull in millions of class viewers. I reckon. I
definitely think we'll see that, but that's again going to be a tragedy of the commons. Like the top people, like David Attenborough or whatever, everybody's going to go to them. But at the bottom, all these
Yeah.
people are going to get nothing. And then I also want to highlight, I know Ben's going to say it because he's a teacher, but the other half of teaching besides the lecturing is the like one-on-one care, is the like seeing the person, seeing how you can help them. I read a story this morning by a guy who was on Twitter, and he said his father was a teacher, and his father gets all these letters all the time from kids in the inner city that he taught, and how he changed their life because he took an interest in them. And a lot of kids can't learn through these one-way lectures, especially a lot of these kind of ADD kids that we have these days, even if they take the meds or whatever.
I got
They-
ADHD, which is
yeah,
probably why.
ADHD, yeah, same thing. But they need that one-on-one attention, and they're not going to get that from that, you know, top level teacher system. There are, you know, a lot of normal level teachers that maybe aren't the greatest lecturers in the world, but they care, they have empathy, they can provide that. We would lose that in that system. So it's gonna be interesting to see the tele education system or whatever we develop, because yeah, a lot of people are staying home. Ben, do you have more on this? Go.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit. I mean, a lot of kids as well, they are accessing education more, and you'll see the generation of kids you've got coming up now, like they really are empowered. They're internet natives, and if they want to learn something, they'll just YouTube it, and they feel they have access to that information in a way where before, you know, they would have had to have gone to a library or gone and done a college course or something. And now, and it's the same, true to all of us as well. So people are falling in love with education again, which you can probably see on the internet with all these master classes and all these other things people want to invest their time in. Like human beings, in order to walk and talk, like we love learning. Like, and it is a real tragedy of some poor education that a lot of kids leave school and they just hate the idea of learning, and they don't want to learn anymore.
But that's because they've had like
and
crazy teachers that just put them off, that don't
Well,
exist.
also,
they've had
yeah,
crazy
our
teachers
system
screaming at them.
changed.
But the reason they've had crazy teachers screaming at them is because class sizes are too big. And but no, like as Thomas was saying, for a lot of kids, particularly ones who are very able, they'll find that school's a real sanctuary. You know, like their home lives may be terrible, but they can go into school and they can have just some normality, and they can speak to someone who's sort of sensible and nice and got hopefully their best interests at heart. So yeah, as a teacher, if you make a little bit of an effort, it's very easy to get a lot of reward out of it. It's a great job, career. If anyone wants to get into do it, it's great.
There's also a lot of potential
yeah,
benefit.
education. You've got to have. The other danger is as well, you need universal access to education. And I think you need it to a certain age as well, because child labor fucking sucked really badly. You'd sort of like, you know, orphans would be put in fields at the age of 4 to scare off crows, which is absolutely horrendous. I've got a 3 near on 4-year-old, and the concept of such a thing is nightmarish. And that was just regular normal society back in the day. And the excuse was, well, they need to earn because they haven't got anyone to support them, so they need to earn some money for food and for board in our little sort of workhouse farm or whatever. So you need child labor law in some way or another, or an understanding within society that children shouldn't have to work, and they should be able to work in some things, but maybe not, you know, be forced to work until a certain age. These are there's no answer. It's all complicated, you know, and like some.
All right, I think we're losing Ben. I don't know. Maybe my
Oh,
internet's-
for you. I thought it was me.
I don't know.
Not for you.
But no, I was also going to say there's also a benefit to the family.
I was sat here looking at you two.
All right, Ben, I think you've got some delay. We might turn your video off for just a little bit and just make sure everything's closed and we're good. But no, I was going to say there's a benefit to the family for having homeschool, having the kids at home. There's a potential to make a connection there that maybe you wouldn't. I know I have some friends that have kids at home, and it's kind of like an extended camping trip. They all have to work together. They all have to pitch in. It's us versus the elements. We only have the food we have in the pantry. You know, we have pasta. You can't go to your friends. You can't go to school. And for some of the kids, it's really working out. They actually prefer the one-on-one attention. They prefer being home with their parents. For other kids, like Ben was saying, they love school. They miss their classmates. They miss their teachers. They miss their books, all the things they had at school. So it is a major change to have this going on. All right, you guys want to change topic? We're going to go to the next topic. We're going to talk a little bit about supply and demand. This is one of the large laws of economics, and I'm sure there's lots of other places you could learn about this in more detail. But just at a very basic level, talking about Bitcoin, talking about the halving, if the supply decreases and the demand remains the same, there will be a shortage. There will be less Bitcoin, not enough Bitcoin, and the price will increase. I've spared no expense. I think I found us a diagram that properly illustrates this. I'm famously bad for reading these backwards. I'm not a great economic scientist here. But if we look at this here, we can see the supply line S1 moves to the left. The quantity Q1 down here goes down from Q1 to Q2. Supply goes down, demand remains the same, and price goes up. So that's basically what a lot of people think is going to happen with the Bitcoin halving. They think it's going to happen with every Bitcoin halving. And this is just kind of a long-term thing that you can get used to with Bitcoin because of the way it's designed. Like we're saying, the distributions go down. This one here, the supply goes up, and therefore the price would go up as well. And that's what the supply to flow chart model believes. We can see here all these green dots. This is the chart. And then if you see this blue purple line here, that's the supply of Bitcoin. And that the blue is the halving, it's going to go up, and that the chart is expected to follow. So a little bit more on supply and demand. Dan, do you want to talk about supply and demand?
Yeah, so there's the idea of the supply and demand in with Bitcoin is interesting because, you know, as we've discovered, it's not something that's used in a, like, for example, a bad example, because everyone hates gold right now, but gold, you know, like, it's, you know, gold is also used for stuff. So, and there's a general kind of supply chain that is expecting X amount of gold. Whereas with Bitcoin, it's the market is, that's the demand for it is purely market driven. So in theory, the demand is pretty much the same. Obviously, the supply goes down, so that it kind of does work out. But at the same time, you've got the additional factors like the hype that goes around it. So the fact that demand will go up, even though supply is going down as well, because of these rumors of, you know, moon, etc. But not just those, but the logical models that stock to flow, and obviously the history of what's happened after halvings, bit of a dip and then pip. So yeah, I think there's a very optimistic target for this, you know, next halving. It'd be great if we see, you know, another all-time high. But remember, the Nasdaq took like 15 years after popping all-time high in the 2000s to reach it again. So yeah, the sooner it happens, the better.
All right, let's go to Ben. It's Ben with us.
Yeah, man. I mean, supply and demand. I mean, a lot of people think that there's this myth, and it was here last time as well, that miners are stashing coins, and then they're going to use those to kind of buffer the dramatic drop in their revenue models. But it's just bollocks. Miners, like, they mine what they can, and then they sell them coins as quick as they can. Maybe some of the bigger operations might hold back just a tiny fraction, but you know, they sell those coins in order to pay for their mining operations. So the supply really is halved, you know, of new Bitcoins, which are being minted and put into the system. It is something which will reflect in the price. You know, you have the amount of demand there is for Bitcoin, particularly in the current climate and crisis we're in, and the amount of relevance which Bitcoin has, and then you halve the supply of new Bitcoins which are getting put out there into the world, then inevitably price is going to go up. That stock to flow ratio, I mean, I actually think that's quite conservative. Like, if you look at, you know, the low we had, and then you look at the previous pump and the low point before it went up and had its previous pump, like, I think we're due to, like, go to, I think it's 140, 150 grand. If we're going to follow the same sort of pattern in relationship to halvening as well. So it may take, I mean, I imagine it'll just do what it did the last one and the one before that. You have a little tiny dip because people think, oh no, the halvening was priced in. Then they realize it wasn't, and the price goes potty. But I mean, it took kind of a year for that to happen the last time, but maybe this time, because of what's happening in the world, there's more people sat on their computers. I saw a tweet, and I think it was on your Twitter, Dan, and it was the searches, the Google searches for the halvening. And it was, what was it, like 2016? It was like Bitcoin searches were at what, 40, what was it, 45? And then I can't remember how the metric works, but now we're at like 60. So we're like, 30% more interest in Bitcoin, and it's getting halved in the amount of Bitcoin being put out there.
That predicted.
I mean, obviously we're all very confident.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that sharp rise at the end, like Google knows it's coming. Trends has predicted, the AI has predicted the Bitcoin pump, the halvening search pump.
That's a good point as well, actually.
We've got the chart on the screen now, Ben. But this is the way our views kind of look for the World Crypto Network too. We have all this stuff back here on the left where we're really excited. Like 2013, we're crazy excited about Bitcoin. 2016, there's another halving. We're crazy excited about Bitcoin. It's just this little bump, like that little bump. And if you look at the price now, if you look at the $300 run or the $1,000 run, those were amazing. Like it went from 300 to 1200 in like a day or two. Like we couldn't believe it. We had no idea. And then to look at this now, to see the searches go, like Ben was saying, it's 56, 64, and then this top number here is 100. Whereas we look at some of these other ones,
really
10, like 7. Like there's no interest in Bitcoin in the past, but whatever's happening since April 5th or so, April 4th, 29th through the 4th there, boom, like Bitcoin, just the interest in it is going crazy. So this is what you do want to see before a big halving structure like this. Another point, I don't have the right graphic for it, but we've seen it recently. The number of coins held on exchanges has been going down. This is a really big number to watch because we can tell, like before the last price dump, before 2017 went down, they saw a large number of coins enter the exchange. And of course, what happened was those coins were traded for fiat, right? They were taken out of the system. Now we're seeing the opposite, right? A large number of coins are being pulled back, probably into people's private wallets so they can hold them and see how this happens. That means they're not thinking about selling. If they have to sell, they're going to have to send their coins to the exchange, wait, and then sell their coins. So there's a step in there. The more that happens, the more we're going to see an actual supply squeeze where, let's say your job, you work for Batman. Every week, Batman sends you to the market to buy 10 Bitcoins. It's been going really good, right? You're doing a good job for Batman. Now, this week, you can't get 10 Bitcoins for Batman no matter what you'll pay. He doesn't care. Like, he'll just keep putting more money on the pile. He likes buying 10 a week. That's his strategy. That's over, right? There are no 10 Bitcoins in the system for ready money. It doesn't matter. And that's what could cause the price not to just rise, like we've been saying, in the normal rise, but to rise in a like a dramatic way. Like the normal price rise that we've been seeing, the normal kind of thing, the doubling, it has to double to make the miners whole, right? But if it goes up 10x, it just makes everybody rich. It's crazy. So Ben, you've got a QR code. Why don't you tell people about it? Looks like you're taking over the screen. I don't care. I'm just saying.
Sorry, I thought I was going to try and do. I was going to try and do it sneakily, just on my little screen, but I ended up doing it on the whole thing.
Well, go ahead do it now. Or you want to wait till the end? All right, we'll wait till the end. But yeah, we can. I've got fundraising pictures. If Ben wants to see fundraising,
yeah, get your wallets out, folks. Get your wallets out. No, this is. I was going to share it again.
We can show you the Tallycoin fundraiser. Recently, we still have a 0.1 of a Bitcoin, a 0.1 towards our goal of $1 million. While the price was down, our fundraiser was down as well. At one point, our fundraiser is as low as $400. And this guy in the chat was like making fun of me. He's like, why didn't you hedge your fundraiser, man? Why would you take that gigantic risk with that, $1,000? And I was like, I think it'll be back, man. I think we just hold it and it'll come back.
One day.
Our magical little $1,000 came back. So if you want to donate, you can donate Bitcoin here. If we push the button, you could donate $10 in the Lightning Network right here with the QR code on your screen. If you want a different amount, you can go to Tallycoin at tallyco.in. You can create your own fundraiser. All you need is a Bitcoin address. Tallycoin can't take any of your money. They don't take anything at all. They just make this nice chart. And you can see our last donation was on April 18th. We had a couple donations that day, and before that, March 18th. So, but thanks for everyone for supporting the show and giving us a thumbs up and a share. That helps a lot too. And that's free, of course, too. So I don't know, Ben, do we have more to talk about, or are we going to go to that?
No. Propagal just said in the chat that if you follow the fundamentals of Google searches, Google Trends, then you're just going to get wrecked. There's going to be some exceptions or something. But actually, Google Trends are incredibly accurate when it comes to Bitcoin, particularly if there's a spike in Google Trends. Just impressions. It's just more people talking about Bitcoin out there in the world, thinking about Bitcoin, and then inevitably going, "Oh, I might buy some Bitcoin," or phoning up their mate and asking them how to buy Bitcoin. So Google Trends are a very good metric. So, and them being so high at the moment is really quite important.
It's pretty neat. Now we've got the last 5 years of Google Trends on the screen right now, and you can see. I guess this was 2016. This is probably the last Bitcoin halving. The peak of searches was 46. If we look at it right now, it's already 50 with a projected 100. So that would be double already. And we're not even at the peak of the halving. Everyone still has to write their articles about, the Bitcoin price is going up like crazy, blah, 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 blah. And for every one of those articles that they write, that could continue to drive the price up. I think as we start to talk so heavily about the price, it's only right that we should check in with the Magic 8 Ball, the source of all truth in all that is Bitcoin, this special Magic 8 Ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week?
Hell yeah.
As I see it, yes.
Yeah.
As I see it, yes. The ball has spoken.
Bye.
Price is still going to go up next week.
And also, I mean, more than all of that, Bitcoin's true value is the technology itself. And think like how far along the technology's come since the last halvening. Like, just remember that question. For me, it's, and I always kind of reminisce on it. There was a HODL, one of the HODL Badger conferences, and it was before the Lightning Network stuff had like really kind of kicked off and had started. I think they were running on a test now or something, and it's still very buggy. And someone asked about wanting to pay for Bitcoin at that, like, the local pub, but it's too expensive. And I think Adam Back, he suggested that they had a tab, and then they like paid down the tab. And then, or no, they have a tab and they work up to a certain point where they're okay paying the transaction fee because it's like they're paying $100 or something. And then all the Bcasher types and all that lot kind of jumped on the back of it, like, oh, that's their proposal as a tab in a bar. But Christ, man, think what's happened since then. Like, think about the stuff we've got with Lightning Network. Think about the stuff we've got with Liquid. It's incredible the amount of infrastructure which is out there now, and the amount of development and like clever developers and different type, like application developers, like not just crazy cryptographer protocol developer types. The sorts of people who actually go there and build usable applications out there in the world. Like, so many people are experimenting with Bitcoin at the moment. Like, and then if you go back just to the financial crisis of 2008 and think about, there wasn't an option. There wasn't a non-proprietary money people could turn to when proprietary money started to fail. And people had those conversations in 2008 about, maybe the way we have our version of money is broken at the moment. What other choices are there? And now, like, Bitcoin is going to share the stage with these solutions, and people are going to understand its value proposition, and particularly that it came out of 2008. I think will be very relevant in the recession, probably depression, which we're going to have. So yeah, just the technology. Look at the technology alone and how far that's come, and its value has very much more than 10x on technology alone.
Yeah, and think about then the side things like the hash rate, the number of services that are using it. There's just the other benefits of like being slightly less centralized in China than we were X number of years ago. So there's a huge amount of kind of benefits that have been been building in the sidelines. And I really agree with you on the infrastructure side, but we're seeing some awesome apps coming out that are really thinking about the user experience, that you may jump. There's quite a leap from the old QT wallet, for example, or just RPC calls on a command line. So there's some amazing stuff coming out, and it just keeps on coming out. More interesting stuff, Lightning Network enhancements, other things like state chains. I know that Commerce Block are looking at that at the moment, so there should be some stuff on Git, and that will provide a different level of liquidity that Lightning doesn't. So I think there's so many cool stuff.
And also just like branding, like in 2016, a lot of people were arguing that all these other solutions were better than Bitcoin, and they could do X, and they could do smart contracts, they could do this, they could do that. Well, now we know, I mean, we've always known, but now it's very much more public that you can do all those things on Bitcoin, but we're taking our time and we're just trying to get the Bitcoin protocol nailed down, and then something like Lightning Network for fast transactions and things. So its actual PR is better. I mean, even like companies like Microsoft, they're using it they're leveraging all that hash rate and all that security for securing digital identities. And there's all this like commodity use cases which are coming out of Bitcoin, which just didn't exist. Like, 2016, these big companies really weren't interested in Bitcoin, and they were just interested in making their own Bitcoins, where now people understand that Bitcoin is a commons public utility, and that everyone can benefit from it and build their services on top of Bitcoin. So, oh man, it's making me so bullish. God damn.
Yeah. And as a protocol, it's moving. People often compare it as it's like TCP/IP, and TCP/IP is actually quite boring, but it's the underlying technology that powers like all the coolest stuff that we sort of surf on today. And Bitcoin is being used more as that infrastructure. It's being the security models being leveraged so that people were timestamping documents. It's becoming the most accurate timestamping clock on earth. So there's all sorts of side things other than the value of Bitcoin itself and the store of value and the other kind of general properties we see from a monetary perspective.
That's like I've said loads of times, but I think that is like the vulgar thing to do with Bitcoin. It's like, there's this thing, it's digitally scarce. Oh, it's got value. Let's pass it between each other for stuff, like it's pretty thug life. And it's like finding lumps of gold on the floor and thinking, we'll use this to pass for between each other. Like there's a whole bunch of other like more sophisticated commodity uses, which we're going to see being built in and around Bitcoin more and more for its, just the amount of security and the power it's consuming.
We've also seen an explosion in Bitcoin YouTubers and Bitcoin podcasts, Bitcoin Twitter people. There's just tons more interest in Bitcoin than there used to be. And as fun as it was to have our little Bitcoin community and to be so tight knit, it's also fun to have this big community. And this is probably the last time where we're really going to know that there is a Bitcoin community. By the time of the next halving, I imagine everyone in the world will be into Bitcoin. So it won't be clear to say, oh, these people are in and those people aren't. They'll just say, oh yeah, everyone's in this thing now. We also want to check out some of the polls. We had just a couple more polls. More people will learn about Bitcoin because of the Bitcoin halving. 58 people voted and 82% said true. More people will learn about Bitcoin because of the halving. Like Ben was saying earlier, part of the design that Satoshi put in here, if I can switch charts, there it is that most of the Bitcoins will be mined by about the third or fourth halvening. If we can see where we are right here, this is the 12.5, the third halvening, and then this one going down to here, the 6.25. By the end of the 6.25, which we would estimate for 2024, all things being equal, almost 20 million Bitcoin will be mined. So just a little bit left of the 19, this little edge, and then the rest is just 1 million. So we can say very clearly 2 halvenings down the way, there's only 1 million Bitcoin to mine until all of time. So like Ben was saying, if you look over here, all the early Bitcoins were in this period. This should create excitement for Bitcoin. It did, right? It was fun. It was exciting. We lived through part of it. It was amazing, right? But it's pretty much over. All the coins are going to be in the hands, which, as Ben said, I agree, this creates kind of stability for Bitcoin. You can't say, well, this many Bitcoins have not been mined, because there's not that many at all. Most of the Bitcoins have been mined. They're out there. They're in circulation. Some were lost. Some were burnt. Some were used. All these things, yes, there's ups and downs. But this is it. So it's fair now. So if you were waiting and you're saying, oh, it's not fair, I want, this percentage to be mined. Oh, well, that's it. It's fair. It's out there. We had another question here. Because of the Bitcoin halving, production will eventually decline to near zero in 2130. 47 people voted. 83% said that this is a small problem. 17% said it's a big problem. Maybe they're going to live that long, but we might have other Bitcoins, other systems, other solutions. And like we were saying earlier, the transaction fees might rise so much that it'll encourage the mining of Bitcoin.
Yeah, man, we're going to have we should have high transaction fees. Make sense. I mean, when you look at the work which is being done for, taking stuff off chain, and things like channel factories, and, when we get Taproot in, Schnorr signatures and all this other stuff, we're going to be able to do a lot more with a Bitcoin transaction. So we can get a lot more for our money just from one Bitcoin transaction. So the concept, our grandkids will be like, what the really, you sent on-chain transactions to other people? And we'll be like, yeah. And they'll be like, gee, I mean, that costs the price of a house to do that now. So these miners are still going to make money. They're still going to make loads of money just from fees. The fee markets, it was in the design. I mean, that's what Satoshi suggested when people brought up that question, was what we're going to do when we run out of bit rewards for miners. And so we'll have a fee system. And that's what we have. So a transaction, there's so much you can do with a transaction, a Bitcoin transaction. So we'll get our values worth. And yeah,
it's also possible that a company like Amazon could be so dependent on Bitcoin that it's worth it for them to mine Bitcoin. Or maybe a government like the United States would be so dependent on it, it would be worth it for them to mine it, even if the rewards are very small, just mining it to keep the network going so we can keep sending around transactions so everything doesn't fall apart. If that kind of truly non-profit mining, like obviously they're benefiting in other ways, if that takes off, we could continue the system beyond 2130. There you go. Like it's not a decentralized solution. It's not a bomb-proof solution. Maybe there's a better solution, but as opposed to no solution at all, I think that's all right.
Was it Bill Gates that got a patent on some sort of internal a Bitcoin miner or something, or was that some sort of crazy conspiracy theory I saw? I'm sure someone said
you can mine Bitcoin inside the human. I think you disinfectant light to do that.
April Fools. Maybe I've been an April Fool.
I think you have. There's a lot of negative stuff about Bill G.
But I mean, again, though, getting more and more bullish as the minutes roll on. We've got, who have we got on our side? We've got Jack Dorsey, the guy who got Trump in power. Well, through his piece of software. He's a true hardcore Bitcoiner. He loves the stuff. Is actually, as you can see there on your Twitter feed, is built a emoji specifically for Bitcoin. So naughty. And
I love emoji. We didn't talk about it much when it came out because there was a big goofball solution of we got an emoji. But every time I use it, I have a little warm.
Thank you, Jack.
There's going to be a Bitcoin emoji after this hashtag. This is a special hashtag. Other hashtags not like this. So I love
exactly. This is our hashtag.
Yeah.
Oh, that's included in the clickability? Is that? I didn't know.
Yeah, it comes with it, Dan. You don't have to even add it. You just put hashtag Bitcoin and it automatically puts that little logo in there. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's nice.
And then we've also got Elon Musk. There's so many people, so many actual people who have a lot of influence in people's decision making, who talk about
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
Fingernails?
Yeah, but she was a shitcoin. The shitcoin nails.
No, those nails supported many coins.
Okay.
But we've got one more poll question. It says, "Is the Bitcoin halving good for?" And 68 people voted. Hodlers wins the day. 91% of people think the halving is good for hodlers. 8% think it's bad for or good for miners. This is mainly a hodler vacation, right? This is probably stressful for miners. If we really want to say, like Ben was saying, maybe the smart miners have some money saved up. They don't care. They can keep paying it. The more close to the book miners, the more kind of month to month miners. This is going to be a tough one unless the price really takes off. which it started to already. But again, it could dip and it could go back up, and who knows how long it dips for and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's definitely good for hodlers. Let's see, Dan, good for hodlers, good for miners.
Oh yeah. So this is going to be a good example of the classic squirrel's nuts. Squirrel A has good nut skills. Squirrel B has bad nut skills, and the one squirrel ends up with no nuts at Christmas. And if the miners haven't procured their nuts properly, then they may be missing out after the halveningness.
They just sell it, man. They just want to pay for. They're just happy they're making the money now. I don't think any of them are storing Bitcoin. Just sell it, buy more equipment, mine more Bitcoin. Like sell. By saying that, but I bet some of the wines pools will be stashing it for, will be holding on to their nuts.
Let's see if there's anything that we haven't covered. We were going to go back to this. This is from the Bitcoin Italy Wikipedia. It's a very good source, sometimes better than the American ones. We talked about how it's a currency with finite supply, how the supply of Bitcoin is always going down because of the halvening. We talked about the different reward eras of Bitcoin, how we had just kind of passed through the second reward and then now the third reward area, the 12.5 Bitcoin reward. And in just a few days on or around May the 12th, we will enter into the fourth era, the 6.25 Bitcoin era. Like we were saying, this go all the way to 2024 when they're estimating now that maybe 100 and around 19 million of the Bitcoin will likely be mined by the end of this period. So that's all but 2 million. We didn't talk about this very much, but everyone says on average every 10 minutes a block is produced. A lot of people, maybe you're new to Bitcoin and you're wondering what the heck that means. There's kind of a difficulty adjustment. So let's just imagine that the difficulty was at 100 and we had 80 computers pointed at that difficulty. That would be good. But let's say that we got 120 computers and the difficulty was only 100. We would be over it, right? We would be cranking out the Bitcoin. Well, what would happen then is that the difficulty would adjust. In our little example here, let's say it adjusted to 140, so that now it's above the 120 computers we have. In a similar way, let's say that we lost computers. It went down to 80. It's going to be very hard for us to mine that 140, right? Everything's going to slow down during that period, but then it's going to adjust back. Maybe it'll adjust back to 100 if we were at 80. So again, these are just random numbers to try to get you to understand this. This is a chart of the same thing I'm talking about, showing us how on average, if it's yellow, that means that the blocks are increasingly slower. If it's red, the blocks are being solved increasingly faster. Most likely it'll come out in the middle in this green section. But as you can see, this is why there'll be a little bit of variance. So we're saying 4 years till the next halving. Let's say we come out with some incredible supercomputers and that all the blocks are red and they're faster. It's going to be a little bit less than 4 years, right? I mean, I don't know how fast the supercomputers could be, but the difficulty will still adjust. It will try to keep things at an average of every 10 minutes. And part of the complexity of Bitcoin is just all these different pieces. That there's the difficulty piece, there's the halvening piece, there's the limited number of units piece, that it's relatively locked at 21 million. Programmers could change it, but it's hard to change. It's that difficulty to edit ledger. You have to convince all the programmers, you have to convince all the miners. And as we saw during the UASF and the No2X movement, you also convince all the users. And the users are really hard to convince. A lot of them have access to good information.
Sorry, just very quickly, sorry, because it's just pinged up 2 minutes ago, and because since we're talking about block times, and this is from CoinDesk. So, in an unusual deviation from the norm, Bitcoin miners just produced 16 blocks in 63 minutes. So that produced an extra block per 10 minutes. It's been extra. Oh, sorry, an extra. Extra 6 blocks.
Well, that's awesome, and I feel like I'm not
10
surprised.
blocks, sorry.
I feel like I've been seeing it here. I've been keeping an eye on DJ Booth's Bitcoinal, and Bitcoinal shows you the blocks every once in a while. And I thought there were too many. It brings up a little announcement, and I thought I thought maybe Bitcoin was broken, but yeah, the reason that would happen, let's go back to my hash rate chart here on the other screen, is that people want the last of these 12 and a half reward blocks. If you are running miners now, if you were a miner in China or wherever, your goal would be, let's get everything running, right? Let's get every single miner anywhere that we've got on the system cranking out that hash rate. And that's why if we see here, let's zoom in a little bit more. Last 180 days, we can see the mining, the terahash, it went up to around 123 terahash. It fell to 94, maybe people turning it off, trying to trick the difficulty to go down maybe. And then they cranked it right back up. We can see 118, maybe 113 right now or yesterday. These numbers might be a little delayed. But yeah, we can see the reason to do that is to try to get the last of those 12 and a half block rewards. So it is very exciting, exciting time for the miners. Let's see, anything else we should cover? I'm gonna go back one more through the article, make sure we got it all. There weren't that many questions in the audience. I think you guys are. Oh, we talked about what happens when all the Bitcoins are mined. We talked about how there's actually less than the Bitcoin number out there. A lot of Bitcoins have been lost. A lot of Bitcoins have been purposely destroyed. People, lost them not on purpose.
So some of them are waiting in a Back to the Future script to be delivered to Craig Wright, and so I don't know, something or other.
They definitely are. And yeah, that's about it. We hit the end of the article.
Wouldn't it be absolutely horrid if just that were true? Like, can you just imagine?
Don't. That would be the 2020. That would be Ben, don't, because that's going in line with the COVID breakdown, UFO.
The world
already went past
the simulations coming to an end.
He got the delivery, and remember, the delivery wasn't the private keys; it was the public keys. So we could see all the money that's there that he can't move and can't have access to. And
Here's my addresses.
It was just like what you'd expect from a con man. Like he'd put up a bunch of newspaper and stuck them in an envelope and sent them to him down the future and gotten everyone really excited about it. And when he opened it up, it was just a bunch of newspaper. And just wait for his next trick. That's, I'm sure, what you say next. You say, just wait for my next trick. So we're getting very excited for the Bitcoin halving here. I hope everyone will come back and join us around May 12th. We're going to do a Bitcoin halving show right here on the World Crypto Network. And remember, just like last time, 4 years ago, 2016, we're going to invite the audience. So it's not just about big, famous, fancy people or whatever, because Bitcoin doesn't give a shit about that. It's about everyone. It's about the audience. So I hope you guys will join us. I hope you'll come on. You don't have to say that much. You could just tell your Bitcoin story. That'd be cool. How you got into it. Tell it for history. Or you could just give a shout out to Bitcoin, like a wedding video. Be like, hey, cute looking couple. You're going to have a great honeymoon, happy halvening, something like that. We'll see. We'll work it out when we get closer to the event. But first, before we end the show, Dan, do you have anything to share? A story of the week or a prediction?
I have so story of the week is that I've kind of more officially now taken over as owner and CEO of rewardportal.com, which I am in the process of having a few decisions as to whether to potentially adopt a Bitcoin Lightning route only, maybe. I don't know. Floating around. So a lot of exciting stuff there. So for the moment, if you want to just scoop up some really cheap free shit coins, then go to earn.rewardportal.com. New site renovation coming soon, and some big kind of cool stuff hopefully happening. So keep an eye out for that, please, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Ben.
Can I have my face back?
Our story of the week.
Can we try my face
or whatever?
It's gone, Ben.
You can try it. You have to turn it on. We can't turn it on.
I can turn it.
No, it says I cannot turn it on because you've stopped it. There we are.
Oh wow!
I just asked you to start a video. Start
New
video.
rules.
There we go.
There you go.
Not a lot really. I mean, we've just been working on the LM Bit stuff. We had a couple of people join the project. Actually, that was cool. A couple of really good developers joined the project. I made a new extension which hasn't come out yet, but it's just kind of being reviewed, and that's like a really easy way to manage your users. So say if you're a computer games developer and you're building a computer game, then you could just like generate wallets. So you can have LM Bits as part of your development stack. You could generate wallets and then just, you know, bring in the fee, you know, the funds and the transactions into your software, and then send and receive from LM Bits. So it makes it really easier for developers to just kind of like take a lot of the heavy lifting out of building stuff. Which actually there's quite a lot of tools being built for that, like development tools. So it's nice to see that, and LM Bits is kind of clicking in with them. So yeah, some cool stuff going on there. Apart from, I got a couple of like other little things. I'm getting distracted. I want to play around with. I want to build some stuff. I got some of the fun, really cool projects, which I don't really want to talk about. No, I don't want to talk about in case it builds anyone's hope up. But I had a couple of cool ideas I wanted to work on the next couple of weeks. So hopefully before the Halvening, we'll get them made. But yeah, LM Bits, man. LM Bits is doing well. Oh, we got hacked. That was pretty cool.
What LM Bits
really get hacked. So there's something called a depletion attack, which is where you make a Lightning transaction. It's quite good, actually. We should educate people on this. So say if you have a Lightning service where I request an invoice as a user. I request an invoice. And then, I give it an invoice, but I force it to go through my node. And then my node then charges, keep doing it loads of times. And then if there's no kind of reserve, so say if you've got like 5,000 sats, 500,000 sats in your wallet, and then you pull out 500,000 sats, you can like then pay yourself a fee of like 10,000 sats as well. And then you can just keep doing that a whole bunch of times and then still loads of money. But we had some systems in place, like someone did this depletion attack thing way quicker than we thought someone was going to do it. And we had some systems in place. They kicked in and then it cut off access to their account. And like, it was just like, because it's on lmbits.com. So, I was able to just go in and just see this dude's account. And man, he was like putting a lot of money through LM Bits, trying to steal a lot of money. But thankfully, it all kicked in and it all worked. And it ended up that we've got like a couple of £100 of his money, and he managed to steal like a tenner. So,
nice.
Dude, if you're out there, I'm sorry, I got your money. Like, I don't know, maybe give you back as a bounty to like find some more bugs or something. So, so I don't know what you do there. I'm sort of holding it like, what do I do now? Like, I don't want to keep this because I feel like I'm stealing from this guy who's trying to steal from me.
You put that in the bounty for more security, for more bugs, security, and what?
Yeah, I think so. I think bounties for security. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. But it was cool. It was just cool to see like it working. And then we're able to like patch the bug, and now it's pretty foolproof. Like you can't do the depletion attack. But apparently it's a very, very common. I was speaking to Igor from Blue Wallet. That was pretty cool as well. Like loads of other developers. Like, man, like it's such a generous, friendly community. Like the Bitcoin Lightning development world. The amount of like quality, high top devs we had, like just telegramming us and saying, "Dude, you need to do this to patch it." And like Igor from Blue Wallet, what a genius that guy is. Jesus, he's one of those like he's like it's a good thing he's not a black hat. The world would be a much scarier place if he were. So yeah, that was fun. Felt like a film, like a cool like hacker film, defending against the hackers.
Was it like in the films where you were like in the basement and there was stuff moving around and you're like password
like cameras
rejected,
panning around me? Yeah.
There's a timer in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, classic. What have you got any just very quickly any more hardware based gadgets? Because I like the hardware based gadgets.
Well, I got the ATM, which I still need to do the tutorial for. I've not done the tutorial for. I need to do that for. Oh, we got the Lightning. There's a Lightning sprint thing happening on the 9th, being organized by Fulmo, and they're brilliant. That'll be on. They've got like their own Mattermost thing. Anyone can join in, and they have loads of like Jitsi streams. Anyone can join in. And we'll be streaming on World Crypto Network all day, for the 2 days. I'll see if I can rep Josh or you, Dan, or you, Thomas, into helping out with that. And we just like interview people who are like it's like that couch we had in the conferences, kind of. But there'll be people like building. But no, I haven't really done any hardware stuff. No, I've gone all software-y. It's a bit lame, really. You should get back on the hardware. But I mean, hardware is a bit redundant now, isn't it? Like, no one's using point of sale terminals or ATMs out there in the world right now, or vending machines. You know,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's more
maybe
software.
it's going to go like in China. I've seen already they've in loads of places where entry points, ATMs, they've actually got a hologram. So you just kind of go, you poke thin air, and you that's it's better than using your elbow at the cash machine or whatever.
Wow,
It's definitely the way it's going.
it's like gobbled over the buttons.
Yeah, yeah, slobber in the air.
It's horrible.
Well, I just wanted to show the fundraiser one more time and thank everyone for watching and donating. And I've been doing lots of shows this week. So check it out right here on the World Crypto Network. I did a show with Adam Meister a couple days ago.
That was this week?
Yeah, yeah.
I saw it pop up on my thing, and I thought it might have been an interview. I'm going to go watch that now because I was.
Yeah, that's a new one, not one of the old ones. And we did that live. We talked about the World Crypto Network 2016, what it used to be like, all the people we used to work with, and the videos. It was pretty fun. Adam, as an audience member, of course, he makes his own videos now, but he had a lot of good, like, kind of, I watched this and I thought of that type questions. So I really enjoyed hanging out with Adam. And we might do another one. People like that. And just in general, might be fun just to get a lot of the other old people back, talk about World Crypto Network, maybe play some of the old videos. That might be fun. So we're working on that. Then I was on Adam's show this week, so check out at TechBalt on Twitter. It's on Adam's backup channel right now. Unfortunately, they took his main channel away. They're having some YouTube troubles there, but it was myself and Tone Vase. We actually talked about the Bitcoin halvening, but we had some different approaches to what we talked about on there. So check that out on Adam's channel. And I forget what else there is. I think that's it. That's it. The third thing is that we're doing is this show right here. So that's the third show that I'm doing. I made it to the third show.
I'm glad you're doing shows, man.
Yeah.
You know, first and foremost, I'm a fan. It's just cool to see you doing loads of shows. I'm gonna go check them out.
I was doing a lot of daily shows recently. I have taken a break from that. Maybe Dan and I'll do the Thomas Hunt show or some kind of call-in show tomorrow, just for fun because it's the weekend.
Yeah, I'm up for that. Thomas Hunt show is cool. It's a bit more political than
show.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, and it's
Just
tough being so right all the time too. The numbers go exactly to where I said they'd go, seeing all being rolled out like I'd said they'd be rolled out. Right now, what we're looking for is the big failure of the second strike, that there's going to be a second wave, and that we're going to, in America at least, we're going to reopen to encourage the second wave. Texas is all.
We're doing the same, man. We're just going to let our. What's happened is there's things like fallen upon humanity, and all governments can do is like, right, everyone stay the fuck at home. Just please don't overwhelm health services. Stay at home. And now they're dealing, with all the people who are sick because they're out and about walking around infecting each other. And now we're getting some flattening. And then, like the UK government, Boris, for example, he's like, oh, we've hit the peak of the curve. And now we're going to start fattening it down and blah, blah. And we can start to, take the pressure off. And everyone can start having their lives back. And it's complete and utter bollocks. Like, none of people have been infected. As soon as you let people out, they're going to get infected. And then we're going to go up again. And it's like, all they can do is try and not let it overwhelm health services, which means that we could be stuck in for years. So.
And that's what I was saying on the Thomas Hunt show. And no one liked hearing it because everyone's like, oh, it's too much honesty. It's too painful. The reality that we're going to have to wait for a vaccine. Oh, no, they can't take it. And we're having the armed militias showing up to protest with their guns, and no one's doing anything about it. And then meanwhile, we've got the whole, all kinds of stuff happening. But that's all politics stuff. We're supposed to talk about Bitcoin here. We're getting off topic. But I think we're going to head towards the end of the show. Maybe final thoughts. I mean, obviously, we're going to have our halving party here. So we're going to talk a lot more about the Bitcoin halving and the party. But Ben, let's go to you. And then to Dan, just like a final thought about the Bitcoin halving. What do you think?
What about the Bitcoin halvening? It'll be ace, man. And like, this is the beginning. A few halvenings from here, there'll be public holidays, oh man, there's some great projects. Which I can't shill because I don't want to like step on the toes of the people developing them, but there's some great like little fun projects to kind of engage people and get people excited about the halvening. So I'm looking forward to seeing those come out. But no, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be a real celebration of something dependable and regular and stable, which is funny, you know, when we talk about Bitcoin, because often it's like a roller coaster experience, but actually, you know, it's dependable old Bitcoin doing what it does, chugging along. Every 10 minutes, when I clap my hand, a child dies. No. So,
Savage.
do you
Barry gets
remember that?
There are
It was that
children
Bono. Do you remember
dying.
that Bono thing?
Oh,
Do you
what?
remember the Bono thing? He's on stage. He's like,
Stop clapping your
no,
hands.
he said,
Stop clapping your
no,
hands.
yeah, that was it. He was like, every time I clap my hands, a child in Africa dies. And then some guy in the stage, some guy in the audience shouted, "Stop clapping your hands, you prick!" Amazing.
Oh, jeez.
I want to go out. I also want to do a.
And that's what it reminds me of.
Here, we're going to be celebrating in YouTube, on the Zooms or whatever, where the YouTube people. The next halving, we'll be celebrating in VR. Everyone will be in VR. VR will be hugely popular. It'll be everywhere. It'll be unstoppable. We'll be in some kind of YouTube VR, something like that.
True.
Dan, Eve, your final thoughts about the halving.
My final thought is that I am going to fish out. I found it recently. It's the first miner I had. It's a USB ant miner. I think it is got it in mid-ish 2013, along with an order of loads of Butterfly Labs, which never ever turned up, unfortunately. But you live and learn. So I'm going to try and get it working so that it's mining whilst we're doing the show. Because wouldn't it be absolutely incredible if this tiny, obviously is never going to freaking happen, but imagine if this got the first 6.5 block. It would be amazing. 6.25 block. Be credible. Incredible. So that's it.
Wear that badge of pride.
More unlikely than being struck by lightning, but yeah, that would be fun.
Struck by lightning from Mercury.
Yeah, from another planet. But it looks like Ben's got the VR rig already.
Well, it's going to be me. Like 4 years from now, man, will be this. This will be it.
That's it. I'll just walk around with that on all the time. I think that's where we're going, and certainly they're already going to be doing some VR chats and some VR hangouts, and hopefully they'll have one of those theater rooms. Maybe they can check in on our show from the VR world, and so on and so forth. Because we don't want to pretend like it's not happening. We know it's happening, and it's cool. And it's Bitcoin. I think my final thought, I had one more thing to say. Let's not lose the fun of Bitcoin. Certainly I titled this show Bitcoin Halving because the Google searches for Bitcoin halving took off. So I don't want to not be included in the Google searches. I want more people to watch this show. That's part of, we're doing it to have more people in the chat, to have more people watching, all that kind of thing. But this is the Bitcoin halvening, right? In Bitcoin, we invent words. This is Alice in Wonderland. This is the internet. We, do abbreviations. We do the abbreviations into a word. We have that guy posts on the message board one time. He's drunk. He's a bad trader. All he does is hodl. He can't even spell hold right. And we make it a meme and we make it huge. So this is the halvening. The halvening is the event where the Bitcoin halving occurs. The Bitcoin halving is the boring part. That's what happens every 4 years. The Bitcoin halvening party, that's what we're bringing to it. We're bringing the color. We're bringing the people. We're bringing the excitement. We're not letting this just be a math problem. But if we weren't here, it would just be a math problem. So let's keep saying halvening, even though halving is getting more and more popular. But if you're an old Bitcoiner, you'll be making up words like me. And if you're a new Bitcoiner, you won't be. And that's how we'll tell the difference. And they won't let you into the Citadel. So there you go. Now you know Joe sent you. You got the password. But thanks again to everybody for donating and joining us and giving us a thumbs up in the share. YouTube should send you notifications if you click on them. They're crafty that way. If you don't click on them, they don't send them. So we probably did too many shows and screwed up your notifications. But that's what's happening there. Make sure to click the bell, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Sometimes it unsubscribes you. But that's about it. We'll come back again tomorrow. I don't know if we'll have anything to talk about with Tiger King, but there's always some politics. Maybe you guys could give us a phone call. So we'll be back tomorrow morning for the Thomas Hunt Show. It'll be fun. And then pretty much a couple more shows and then the halving party. So it's going to be great. So be sure to join us here. Thumbs up and a share. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.